Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for making the time to join us in the middle of the week. We appreciate your time and we are indebted to our mentors that volunteer their time in the middle of the week to be with us. My name is Luma Chenyi. I am the programming committee chair, and I am also a student at Texas Tech El Paso. The motto for or the tagline for diversity in dentistry mentorship is that we did it so you can. And it is really true because our mentors do help us, especially with the subjects or with the things that were a concern to them. The main thing is that what we struggle through, you do not have to struggle through, which a very big one is how to study when things change, when you go from an undergraduate student or even studying for the DAT to actually being a dental student. Whatever worked in undergrad does not really work in dental school. And it is very helpful to be able to understand what changes, what has changed. So before we jump into it, I would like to give the amazing Dr. Franklin. If you do not follow her, do. She has a lot of tips all the time on how to study for the DAT. She's amazing with reviewing personal statements, but I will let her go more into that. And we have two mentors, mentees as well that have signed up. At this point, we are waiting for one more, but we do have Lester with us, and Jasmine Gray will join us. But I will let Dr. Franklin do the introduce herself and for a panel to introduce themselves. But please use the chat. Do say who you are, where you are in your dental journey, and what you're hoping to get from this. And as we do talk, please send in your questions. That way we can be of the most help to you. I'll let Dr. Franklin go with it.
Hi, thank you, Luma. So thanks everybody for making time to hop on this webinar. We hope that you will find it useful. We're here to basically give you tips. This is something that is very personal to me. I was a tutor in college and also a little in high school, and also taught during dental school and residency. So I love teaching. I did my dental school at Baylor College of Dentistry and my residency at Indiana. Now I practice at my own practice in Oakland, California. I'm a pediatric dentist. As Luma was alluding to, I do read personal statements. I do kind of hop in for questions. So if you have some, feel free. We'll share our info at the end of the webinar, and you can reach out to pretty much any of us, especially me, and just like email me if you have a question. Currently, I'm just very busy being a new practice owner and also associating and going through the whole roller coaster of that. So if you have questions specifically about like pediatric dentistry, etc., that's pretty much my whole life. And I'm happy to answer those, but excited to kind of chat to our amazing dental students today and hopefully make this really useful for y'all. Great. Did we want Dr. Lester to introduce himself?
Yes. So I'm Lester. My name is Lester Gopar. I'm a D3 at UCLA. And I'm the first in my family to pursue an interest in dentistry. And my focus coming into UCLA was always to be a general dentist. As I'm going through my path now at UCLA, I want to explore other options, and I haven't discouraged any specialty yet. And as I'm going through my rotations, I'm exploring what specialties are interesting to me. So I'm in the discovery phase of exploring a specialty, but still considering going through with general dentistry.
Great. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. Today we wanted to start by asking a couple of questions, And also, if you think of questions while you're listening to these answers, feel free to pop them in the chat box and we will definitely try to get to those as well. Okay. Some of the questions are just kind of geared towards things that I was thinking of that were things that seemed helpful, but certainly everybody is going to have a different study style. So keep that in mind. Something that works for a classmate or for one of us might be totally different than for you. So keep an open mind, but also it's kind of fun to try new things sometimes. Okay, so Lester, are you ready? Can
I'm
I
ready.
ask you a question to start out with?
I'm
Perfect.
so cute and I'm ready.
Oh, great.
Just,
And then
just doing.
hi, Jasmine.
Hi,
Welcome, Dr.
guys.
Gray. Excellent. Did you want to actually take a minute just to introduce yourself as well?
Absolutely. So one, let me apologize for joining late. I joined the wrong Zoom link in my email, so I apologize about that. But I am a D2 at
Sorry.
Howard. No, it's all good. I'm a D2 at Howard. If you guys read the description, it kind of was a long synopsis of what I've done in the last year. I'm the vice president of our class, and I just became the president of the Hispanic Student Dental Association. I'm also the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair for as the District 3. So really long, but yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Oh, okay. Great. Well, we'll hop right in. So Lester, I was wondering, do you feel like you are a visual or an auditory learner? And how has that kind of manifested since you've joined dental school, which has components of both listening and like didactics, but also a lot of visual and like hands-on learning?
Yeah, great question. I find myself to be more of a visual learner. And when I'm studying, I need a picture to follow through. Many of us, I'm sure we use YouTube videos, and I use those to supplement much of my learning. Sometimes these YouTube videos do a better job at explaining concepts or subjects that our faculty breeze through, and we get a chance to now go in depth and learn a little bit better through these videos. I could listen to audio, but I find myself that even while listening, I still have to look at a picture or look at the lecture notes. And I think it's just good to keep in mind that everyone has different learning styles. Find what works best for you and adjust based on your needs. I have friends that are very good at learning by just listening to the lecture. That's not the way that works for me. But I understand that my strength is by looking at pictures and going over videos.
Love that. Yeah, definitely. The YouTube videos were so helpful for those like early classes, and even now when I'm reviewing techniques for actual dentistry, it's super helpful. So love that. Okay, flying through it. Future Dr. Gray. This one's kind of a loaded question, so feel free to, take it in little pieces, or to break it down into a specific kind of area. But essentially, what study method works best for you? We were kind of listening to YouTube and visual, but including like listening to the lecture, rewriting, taking notes, group studies. What are some of your favorite ways?
So honestly, it took me the entire year to kind of perfect it. I would say as of right now, my main goal is when I'm in class to ask as many questions as possible, just to make sure that I actually understand the concept. After that, I'll see if maybe the upperclassmen have made Anki decks or like Quizlets for it. So I'm consistently doing active recall every single day, so that when it comes to the exam or when it comes to boards that I'm there and I remember what's going on. And my biggest goal, especially for pre-dents and even our new D1s, I tell them, start broad and then work your way into the tiny details.
Oh, I love that. So I'm a little bit older. Is Anki something that a lot of schools have now? Is that like similar to Quizlet?
Yeah, it is
Yes.
the Quizlet. It is the new Quizlet.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I will tell that to my little high school mentees too. Love that. Okay, great. Lester. Okay. So I know that you've been in school for a bit now. Some students describe dental school as like being a little overwhelming or drinking from a fire hose because it all just comes at you pretty quickly and the volume is a little bit different than undergrad. Has that been your experience? Was there anything you did to make that less overwhelming?
So I hear that scenario when I was coming up as a pre-dental student. At times that is what the situation seems like, but it's not always like that. And I wanted to remind our pre-dental students to keep in mind that dental school is hard, but don't let those moments that we share discourage you from going through with dental school. Big thing to keep in mind is just allocate time for things that are important as well. Those are going to keep you grounded and make sure that you are doing well in school as well. But there are times as well that are not as overwhelming. And those are the moments that we enjoy as much as well. Spending time with our classmates, going outside in socials, and just having a good, well balance as well as a dental student.
I love that. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the term forged in fire, but I feel like that was dental school. Anything that I was going through, I took comfort in knowing that I had nearly like 100 friends that were going through the exact same thing and that people before me had done it as well. So sometimes like you'll hear us talking, oh my gosh, it was so hard, etc. But I love that, like keeping in mind, savor the moment. Remember you wanted to be here. Remember that it does end and you will get through it and there's resources. So love that. Awesome. Okay. Well, moving right along. Let's see oh yes, this will be great. And either one of you can chime in here, just because there's always new things out there. Were there any time management apps or tools that you found particularly helpful or that you're using? Be it like planners, Google Doc, Google Calendar?
So I'll say that my Google Calendar is like my baby. I put everything in there, and if it doesn't go in there, I will forget it. Just because dental school, there's so much thrown at you at one time. You need somewhere that has everything. Even if it's like a friend's birthday, I throw that in there as well, just so that like I make sure that I'm on top of everything. So definitely Google Calendars.
For myself, I find that I'm more old-fashioned, so I actually have a planner, a physical planner, and I have to write everything down. I always make fun of for not having Google Calendar, and I have it part of school, but I find it that I need to separate my personal life sometimes from Google Calendars, and I write those important dates in my calendars instead of putting out Google Calendar.
Maybe part of the visual as well, just like seeing it all written in front of you. Yeah, I love that. Same thing that I do to this day. We have an office Google Calendar and our study groups did the same thing. Love that. Okay. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay. Lester, can you tell us how you're kind of working with the hands-on components and the practical things and lab work, something that pretty much none of us had experience with in undergrad?
Yeah, so when I first got introduced to dentistry, I did the USC Dental Explorers program. It was my first introduction into what dentistry is like and the hands-on component. I fell in love with it, and that was initially my interest into going for dentistry. Now, as I find myself being a dental student here at UCLA, my introduction into the didactic component, the practical component was a bit of a rough transition because I didn't have any prior experience other than that one program that I did. And at the beginning, it was a lot of me staying after late from classes, sacrificing the long hours and even my breaks as well. I would come back during breaks and do extra projects. And I tend to even do that till now. That's one of the ways to get better. You have to be able to commit and put in that time to sacrifice and hopefully strive for what you're coming in for, to be the best practitioner that you can be.
Love that. Yeah. That's awesome that you were able to do a pre-dental kind of a program. For anybody that can do those, they're super fun. And obviously, you know, getting some hands-on experience is super exciting, but nothing quite compares you for the late hours, which I know all of us are very familiar with staying late hours and getting that lab work done. So again, not alone.
And Dr.
Okay,
Frank, can I
awesome.
add?
Yeah.
Can I add as well that part of getting better as well is being receptive to feedback. And so when we're asking for feedback, have an open mind in getting criticism back, and also go to the actual person that will be grading you. So most of the time, faculties have office hours, and you want to be able to get their specific feedback instead of someone else that won't be necessarily grading you.
Love that. Perfect. And also asking for help from pretty much anybody. Yeah, I've been in lab and we kind of knew who was good at lab and like who was not as good at lab. And I would literally just say, hey, can I watch you? Can you help me? I don't know why this is happening. And they would be so kind too. So even if it's like 11 o'clock at night, you can usually find somebody else in lab to help too. Okay. So Jasmine, you are quite, it sounds like, involved, and thinking back, that was like a lot, you know, being involved in dental school plus focusing on your grades and trying to learn how to be a stellar dentist. And I feel like most of our mentees are kind of in that same boat. Like, we love to be involved and do stuff. So can you give some tips for how you maintain a balance between studying and personal life and leadership and extracurriculars? And, you know, how are you keeping that healthy and also paying attention to like you right now?
Absolutely. I will say it is a tight lifestyle. I'll start there. I think the best way to, one, I guess, stay motivated is to kind of know why you're in leadership. Know that it's not just for your resume, that is, you know, I chose to get involved in all these organizations because I like to help and I like working in my community. So it was something that I use as a kind of way to debrief from school. So in a way, it's kind of helping. My biggest tip would be a Google Calendar, honestly. It's my favorite. Like I said, I would lose my head if I lost it. If I got logged out, oh, it would be so bad. But honestly, just stay on top of everything. Definitely stay on top of everything and ask for help. That was one thing that I kind of slacked on last year, that I realized that the upperclassmen have already tried to, you know, do certain things and they know the ways that it works and the way it doesn't. So I would definitely say ask for help.
Okay, I love that. And Lester, you mentioned like keeping your personal life a little bit separate from your school life, which is, I think, something that is really challenging to do when you are always surrounded with dental school. And do you have any additional tips for avoiding burnout and kind of keeping your personal life more intact?
Yeah, so I would admit that the first 2 years of dental school were really rough for me. I didn't have really a balance. It was mainly a lot of school. And when I reflect back, it was those moments that I wish I can get back. But going forward now, my perspective is to look at the big picture and allocate time for those that are loving people in our family. They're not going to always be there for us, and so we want to share that moment that we have with them. So I always try to make a special moment in my breaks where we can hang out, we can spend vacations together, and so you just have to make that part of your plan as well, and consider them as well. They have feelings and they're important to you, part of the reason why I'm here is because of my parents and my strong family values, and I need to, you know, give attention to them as well.
I love that. And that is so, I mean, you know, it's refreshing for the soul. Definitely a regret I have. I certainly missed a couple of weddings just because I was like, I have to study and I'll never be able to go back to those. So I love your values. That is awesome. Let's see. Okay. Hopping right along. Let's see. So one question that comes up a lot is, when do you start to feel out kind of strategies for picking specialties? And if you want to do a specialty, how do you go about like studying more for that, or does it affect how you study for other things and other classes? So if you wanted to hop in there, that'd be great. If you have any opinions.
So
Dr. Gray, you go first.
Oh, go for it.
I was gonna say, Dr. Gray, you can go first.
Okay. So I am interested in oral surgery, which is kind of a big thing, especially with everything that I already have going on. I would say, depending on the specialty, you can kind of wait and get a feel for it when you're on clinical rotation. So when you're on peds or pros, restorative, general, things like that. I would say in terms of oral surgery, because you do have to take the CBSE, which is equivalent to step 1 for med students, you kind of have to know where your foot is, or if that's a possibility of something that you would want to do in your first year, because those are the classes that kind of pop up again on the exam. Lester, what do you think?
Well, I was gonna agree with you because I just discovered recently that I'm interested in OS as well. And I've mentioned that I was interested in becoming a general dentist in the beginning. But I just finished my clinical rotation in oral surgery maybe about 3 weeks ago. And I've came across an experience where I wanted to now shift into the specialty of being an oral surgeon. That trajectory now looks completely different from where I started off. And I agree with Dr. Gray. You have to kind of come in, especially if you're doing something like oral surgery, with an idea that maybe you're perhaps interested. But if you're not, and you find yourself in being like in that position that I am, it's totally okay. There's things that you can do to overcome it. So don't let that be the barrier to pursuing a specialty if you're interested in one, or if you find yourself all of a sudden now discovering a specialty that you can see yourself being in.
Oh, I love those answers. So just to chime in a little bit, I had kind of thought I wanted to do ortho and then realized I love peds, but I had friends that literally did not think they were going to specialize until about 3 months before it was time to start applying. And they were worried about their grades and this and that, and they almost didn't go for it. But certainly, like, if you change your mind or change your trajectory, that is totally okay. Even if you didn't have like the best grade in like this one class your first year because you didn't know you wanted to do that, they're not going to hold that against you. But in general, my tip as I was teaching was learn everything you can in dental school. The more that you know in dental school about every specialty, the more that you're going to be able to help your patients, regardless of if you do general or any specialty. I get to quarterback lots of patient care with different specialists, and it's so nice to understand what the periodontist or the oral surgeon is talking about. So soak all of it in while you're in school, because when you're out, you have to pay a lot of money for those CE courses. Let's see. So strategies. Next question, we'll ask this to Lester. Any strategies that you have to tackle different types of questions, such as multiple choice, short answer, case-based scenarios that you've really like developed since being in dental school?
Yeah, so whenever I'm taking an exam, it's good to get an idea what kind of exam format you can expect, if it's a multiple choice or fill in the blank and adjust your studying based on that. We just, for example, had an oral pathology exam where we didn't have a single multiple choice question. All of them were fill in the blanks. And so, yeah, it's intense. In that type of scenario, you want to be able to pronounce the word, because that being able to pronounce the word will help you spell out the word correctly as well. And when I'm looking at multiple choice questions, I'm getting at the big picture. So being able to recognize quickly the correct answer and not necessarily focusing on the small details. For case-based questions, I find that you should be able to recognize both big and small, because everything relies on each other, and nothing is going to be very specific. It's going to be, or things might be specific, but overall it can be general. And so you want to have an idea to get both the big and small details when you're looking at those type of questions.
Great. And kind of our last question before we wrap up with just the pre-form questions, and just big thoughts. So Jasmine, when you are looking at, taking all these tests at the end of the semester, have you adapted like techniques or habits or tips to retain all of that information for extended periods of time?
I would say absolutely. So the first thing I do so I study every single day. And that's one thing that I didn't do in undergrad that I had to learn in dental school, which was mind-boggling to me. And so what one of the upperclassmen told me, and it made everything click one day, was instead of trying to study everything in that one session because it takes so long, condense all the information that you get in that day into a more digestible form so that when it's time for the exam, you're able to just kind of pick it up. So that's one thing that I do. For example, we have a pharmacology exam on the 26th, and it's going to contain 16 lectures. And so my biggest tip was going through her objectives and just kind of answering the objectives. And again, just trying to condense the information so that it's not crazy when I come back to look at it like prior to the exam. And again, Anki has saved my life. Ninja Nerd, he saved my life as well. Yeah, Ninja Nerd, it's top tier. And sometimes if I'm really confused or if I really don't understand the concept, I'll ask some of the med students, like the upperclassmen of the med students, since our schools are connected, to see what kind of resources they have. And some, usually they help, especially with pathology and stuff like that. They're huge helps.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. Okay, so we've gotten so many good tips there. Did each of you want to share your top tip for pivoting from like undergrads to dental school studying?
I have a general tip that I always share with.
Lester, you could go first.
Yeah, I have a general tip that I share normally with our pre-dental students that I come across, our first generations that are getting into dentistry for the first time. And that's usually learning about finances. It's usually not something that we talked about enough. And the amount of loan and the interest is not an area that necessarily is explained to us when we're in high school. So if you get the chance before you go into dental school, take some classes or learn some things on YouTube about what type of loans they are providing to you and the options to pay down those loans. If there's any scholarships to take as well, and considering as well your options to look at schools that are going to have the values that you want, but also at a affordable price that you can see yourself paying if you're going to go a route that doesn't include any scholarships.
For sure.
I like that. So what I would say is use the DAT if you haven't taken it yet, as your introduction to dental school. And I wish somebody would have told me that a long time ago, because it makes sense. You have all this information, including math, which It's kind of, I guess you can kind of say like pharmacology and biochem. You have biology, which comes back in anatomy in every class. You have all these classes and all these subjects on the DAT that you can kind of use this as like a stepping stone to like, okay, let me see if Anki actually works for me. Let me see if writing out notes and, you know, trying to condense it all into a digestible format will work for me before the exam. And I would also say, don't be afraid to take a break. I tell all the the D1s now, it's okay to relax. Like for me on Fridays, I refuse to study. I refuse to touch a book. I cannot do it. Fridays are my day. I'm not a dental student on Fridays, I swear. So yeah, those are my top 2 tips.
Oh, those were wonderful. I love that. Okay, let's see. Before we hop to questions, it looks like we have a lot of questions. Exciting. I'll give my last 2 tips. One tip is a practical tip. It's called fairy dust. Do you guys know about fairy dust? No. Okay. So fairy dust is what happens with teachers at the end of the semester. If you have been a fantastic student and you have been working so hard and you show up to class, even when it's kind of optional, and you're nodding your head and they know that you're paying attention, I feel like fairy dust came into play. And so that means if you have an 89.4, oftentimes like that would come in as an A. And so it's also nice because sometimes like you'll show up and before they start the recording, I don't know if your teachers do this, but they would give like a bonus, like if you're here, write your name down and you're getting points. And not that you show up for that, but just in general, I think that in this world where it's so technologically based, the human connection that you can get by going in person and showing that you care and trying your best and getting to know your teacher is just still very valuable. And then the second tip, which kind of plays off of Jasmine's, is taking care of yourself. Turns out I was like totally sick my first year of dental school, and I just thought, oh, this is because I'm living off Monsters and I don't sleep and I don't drink water and I eat Chick-fil-A every single day. And it turns out that no, I like was not well and I should have been to a doctor. And so, also I went from 0 to 10 cavities in 1 year, the first year of dental school, because I didn't realize milk caused cavities. So just a heads up, you are sacrificing and you get in that grind mode, and there's something about just, working really hard and like getting the grades, even if you're just competing with yourself. But self-care is like so important, because I had friends that gained like 15 pounds in 1 semester, and just a lot of funny things that we probably could have prevented if we would have focused more on like meditation and self-care. So, and that will help you study better. I promise. All-nighters are actually not good. Yeah, so there were our pre-posed questions and some wonderful tips. And now let's start going through the questions, okay? And Luna, can you help me with these?
Sure, there were a lot of questions. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much, Dr. Franklin. There are some questions, but what I would like to start with is that every session that we have is on YouTube. Go back to it and look at it, and it will kind of help you put things into perspective. Please go back and look at it. This one will also be on our YouTube channel. We do have our social medias where some of you saw this session before joining. Please do take advantage of it. So for the questions, there were several of them. I will start with the first one. So someone was asking if the many activities that you do, if it affects your social life. My comment on there was that dental school itself affects your social life. But I wanted to see what our panelists had to add to that, how your social life is affected in dental school and how you balance that. I know student Dr. Gray already addressed that. Did we have anything else to add to that?
I guess I would just add that, yeah, dental school in itself kind of affects your social life. So you kind of just have to make it in itself. But because you're always talking to new people and new classmates and new upperclassmen every single day,
Mhm.
it kind of helps in a way. I feel like when you get there, you'll understand what I'm saying. But even in undergrad, like I was heavily involved in undergrad, and I felt that it kind of helped me build connections that kind of manifested where I am now. So
Mhm.
it works.
Let's
I
let's
would, yeah, I would add that there are certain conferences that we have that become social, and those are also good escapes. For example, like ASA, they have these national conferences that are there to help network, and at the end we have these social events as well. Though those are good energy boosters as well, and you get to meet so many different people from different states. In addition, just meeting new classmates in clinic and also in didactic courses, get the chance to maybe grab something after class or out in the weekends. And our clubs are definitely another way to maintain your social life. For example, our HSDA chapter here, we have a social coming up with our SNDA chapter, and that's something that many students are going to come out to, and I look forward to going to that event myself.
Yes, we just came back from the SNDA conference that was joined with the NDA conference. Those are really important, especially since school almost takes over your life. It is good to see like your reason why, or to have other networking events outside of campus. So
Yeah,
thank you.
there's a reason why a lot of dentists are married to dentists. I met my husband in residency, so you make your social life.
Yes, and also when it comes to social life, is that if that is because I do understand that is a big concern. For me, what helps is time management. With everything, you need to like perfect your time management skills, which is I'm glad Dr. Gray shared her Google Calendar. Student Dr. Lester shared his planner. I am old school, I still have the planner. And no matter what you feel about it, there is always a way to manage it. Because as I shared, I am a student, I am a mom of 3 boys. I do diversity in dentistry, I'm on a SNDA team. It is just that time management, and you will find out that it is possible to put everything in its own place and make it work. Dr. Gray shared that she uses Anki a lot. I am old school. I use Quizlet and flashcards. So someone was asking what was the best study tool for school as well as for the DATs. That was from Zenaya. Does anybody want to add to that?
So I didn't use Anki for the DAT. I used a lot of practice questions though. And like I was going through practice questions almost every day, all night, all day. So I would say that for the DAT, for school, I would say Anki flashcards because it's so much information that you want to retain it. So you're constantly having to look at it.
Yes.
When I took the DAT, I didn't even know about Anki, so
Yeah.
I think I would use sometimes like Quizlet or even old school again, write my own flashcards. As I go into dental school now, I'd find myself mostly just using the lecture slides or old classmates that have graduated their PowerPoints, or excuse me, their notes, and that's usually what helps out. It works out well for me.
Miss Julie, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I noticed in the chat, since both doctors are interested in oral surgery, someone had asked, can one of you talk about, picking oral surgery and knowing that there's going to be more years involved with schooling? How did you weigh your decision? Is this really what I want to do? Am I willing to make, added commitment? Can you talk about that, either of you?
I put a response on there that the years will go by anyway. But if either one of you would like to talk on that.
I'm happy to answer first if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the discovery phase if oral surgery is something I really want to do. I wanted to investigate a little bit more and see if that's a path that I really want to go do. but I definitely have to share that I debate the amount of years that I want to invest in additional training in school. Oftentimes we want to just start a career and get money and start working, and live our life a bit. So at the moment, I'm still in the discovery phase if I do want to do the specialty, and I want to remind myself as well, what was the reason why I decided to do oral surgery. And that was because I had met a patient that had got oral squamous cell carcinoma. And it was her experience when I was speaking with her in Spanish that I realized that there was a need for Spanish oral surgeons. But I also have to explore a little bit more and see that if that's something I really want to commit myself for additional 4 to 6 years.
So for me, coming into dental school, I knew I wanted to keep going in a sense. My family likes to call me a career student, which I can see why. I'm constantly just trying to find new ways to learn things. But I think during my spring semester, I was on the fence. I was kind of stuck between, okay, do I really want to do oral surgery, or do I really want to have like this broad aspect of like maybe a GPR where I could still, be on call, work in the hospital, still see crazy things, but not too much, and I still get to do the pretty stuff like restorations. Then over the summer, I was chosen to go to the preps program at University of Pennsylvania, and I was able to actually scrub into their oral at the hospital in their oral surgery department. And that solidified everything for me. The attendings were absolutely like a blessing. They were so nice. They let me and my partner scrub in. So we were able to like hold the retractor. He let us cut the suture. So that was kind of like the moment that I was like sold, like, okay, I gotta commit the next 10 years of my life to being an OR and on call. So that was my experience.
Okay. I will also chime in that for me coming into I am a very non-traditional student, and I chose dental school because I want to do oral surgery. But being an older student, I am more of the age group of my teachers than my classmates. As I joke on there that the years will still come to pass, it is something that it expands the scope of what you can do as a dentist, and I appreciate that. However, most dental schools teach you how to be a good general dentist, and that in itself is workable. It is still good enough. You can still make a difference. So I say that to say, if you focus on being a good general dentist, there is so much else that you can do. You do not have to decide within these 4 years. My mindset is, if it's something that I can do straight out of school, fine. If it takes me I'm in school 15 years after undergrad. If it takes me another 15 years to decide to go do oral surgery, that is still fine, because the opportunities are still there. Do not give yourself any pressure of I need to decide now, because if you are choosing oral surgery, as student Dr. Gray has shared, there are some exams you have to take. You have to take the equivalent of step 1, and they don't teach us everything that you need for step 1 in dental school. So you have to study on your own. Mm-hmm. If it is something that you choose to do, do it. It is possible. Do not put any pressure on yourself, because as Dr. Franklin shared, she had classmates that decided 3 months to application that they want to do that, and they still do it. It is good to think about specialization, but with everything you have to do in dental school, if you feel like you need to take your time to survive dental school, that is fine as well. The main difference is you're not just studying for class and that final exam. You still have to pass labs. As student Dr. Lester shared, you can end up being in lab all day, and most teachers are not most teachers teach differently. For us, they'll just give us like this picture, and this is what your class 2 should look like. Get it done by the end of the week. Some teachers will actually sit down and show you how to do it. So figure out how it works best and how to get through it. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I agree. don't make a decision on that moment. Think about it through and really consider if that's something that you really want to see yourself doing. And it's okay if you decide to do general dentistry. That's probably the path that I'm going to do, but I'm also exploring a specialty. And the goal always was to come in to be the best provider, regardless if that's in the oral surgery department or as a general dentist. I'm striving towards that every day.
Okay. Another question that was asked was, what strategies can help? Like, do you think it helps to like read lectures before class? Or what strategies?
I would say, and maybe this is just my experience, there's so much to do. There's no time for me to read lectures before class. I know some people do it and I commend them. I just know for me personally, it's super hard because I spent all night trying to condense all that information. So that's what I would say on reading lectures prior. If you can, if it works, definitely do it. I would say for like the cadaver lab, I definitely did. And I was telling some of the D1s that in order for you to go into the cadaver lab and know what is being said and what you have to look at, create a word bank in your head of everything that you need to know and everything that you know is going to be on this section or on this exam. And then you can kind of work with that. So I would say, okay, so I'll say it depends on the class for sure.
I find myself being that one person that Dr. Gray was talking about that always goes over the lecture right before the exam. And it just gives me a bit of a confidence booster to know that I went through the whole material. I felt good about it. And if that's just a simple, quick review, or sometimes I'm listening to the lecture twice the speed as I'm following my notes. That tends to be my tradition every time before an exam.
I wish I was able to do that, honestly.
And and I think Dr. Gray shared like the student Dr. Gray shared like the best one to study every day. That is like the difference. In undergrad, you could get by cramming the day before the exam. But I feel like in dental school, if you don't study, if you don't try to absorb a little bit more each day, like there is no way you can go through it all at all. And then the next question was, how long do you feel it took you to transition to the rigor of dental school? I know it differs from person to person, but I'm interested in hearing like how long it took for you to to like transition to like the rigor of like studying for dental school and how you studied in undergrad.
To me, it's always a never-ending transition. I think you're always getting to the next level, and then you see what else is in front of you, and now you have different things to manage. We just finished our didactic courses, but now we have to balance didactic courses, lab work, and patients.
Yes.
And at UCLA, we're not just simply seeing patients, we're scheduling patients, and also following up with them. So there's a lot of work behind dental school, and it's not simply just studying for classes.
Student Dr.
I
Gray.
would say I agree. At Howard, so we take majority of our didactics in like the first year. Time-wise, I think so. Okay. As a D1, we have exams every Monday. And it was kind of crazy. So I would say after the first set of exams, and seeing how I did, I kind of decided, okay, let me get my act together. And that was the transitioning moment. That's when I realized, okay, this is what I need to do. I realized like, I need to write things down. That's the kind of person I am. That's how I retain information. I need to see repetition. Repetition matters. So I would say after the first set of exams, kind of helped me. So maybe like after the first couple months, first 2 months, first month and a half, it kind of took me.
Okay, and I would agree with student Dr. Lester as well. That transition will depend on the school you choose to go to. For instance, my school has we start in the clinic first semester, so you have to like try to adjust because the learning that it needs for like clinic and the learning that needs for SimLab and the learning that needs for your coursework is very different. So that moment will happen for you, but it will happen when you see how much you need to go through. Dr. Franklin, do you have anything to add? You did not take off the mute, Dr. Franklin. Dr. Franklin, you're still on mute. Okay, I'll get back to her, but I think the last question we have now. Okay, someone asked about studying for the DATs and the difference in. Let me try to unmute her.
Oh, thank you.
There she goes.
Okay. No, I think it comes in time, and I think that you are capable of so much more than you realize when you're in undergrad. When you are in undergrad, you feel like you are the busiest you have ever been, and you can't possibly get any busier. And then when you're in the dental school in D1, you feel the same way, and you've got all these tests, but also if you get a bad grade on one test, like, you will roll through it, you will be fine, you will survive. You will feel during different parts of your dental school that you are more busy than you have ever been, and then you will survive it and you will be just fine. And then life will happen. Luma, as a mom of three, you get this. And so I guess what kept helping me was, I'm not reinventing the wheel. Other people survived this. I will survive this. Staying positive, because they're not going to overwhelm you. Keep in mind, dental schools do not want you to fail. They want to produce a good dentist. They're not doing this to torture you. They're doing this because there's a lot to teach you. And so they will not overload you. Their goal is to help you. And keep that in mind, because when you assume that the person is doing something to you out of good faith and goodwill, you will take it less personally and you will have more trust in the process. And so it's okay if you feel overwhelmed, all of that, it'll happen, but you will also get through it just like all of us did.
Yes, we are down to the last 4 minutes. In the interest of everyone's time, I would like to share that if you do have any more questions, if you would like to continue the conversation, please reach out to social media, because we have amazing people like Dr. Franklin that can make the time to be here. We do have some of our mentors that are more active on social media because they cannot make this time to be here. But I will be at such a loss for all of us if I don't ask Dr. Mariam Galvanash what she has to ask. She's one of our amazing mentors that shows up for everything. Dr. G, I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, y'all did a good job. I love listening to Dr. Franklin. I have a big girl crush on her because she's like the Meghan Markle of pediatric dentistry, like a mini Dr. Highshaw. She speaks so well. She has such great tips. The only thing to add, which y'all already said, is like I kind of regret. I'm board certified pediatric dentist now, but I do regret not being more open to specialties and making more connections with faculty. So that way, when I did specialize, I wasn't stuck with a bunch of GPs I knew. And then struggling to find like the pedo people, like, hi, I know I knew you for like a year, but can you write me like an excellent rec? So just keep your eyes open and never close any doors. And it sounds like the student doctors are doing just that, but that's like a really great tip that I heard.
Thank you, Dr. G. Love you. Thank you. So again, please reach out to us on our social medias. You all do have the info email. Do reach out to us by email, as I will continue to share. Putting yourself out there is like the first step to success if you need help. And I'll ask Dr. Lila to add if she has anything to add.
Sure. No, thank you guys so much. On your screen right now, you'll see a quick feedback poll. Is anonymous. We just like to measure the value of our webinars and get feedback so we can continue to make them better and better, because we are absolutely here for you. And to our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Franklin, student Dr. Gopar, student Dr. Gray, and of course, student Dr. Chenyi, just for your time. You know, this is exactly what I envisioned when starting the nonprofit. With mentors, we are just here to try to give you the shortcut and help you from making the mistakes that we made. But with everything that was shared, which were just stellar, I mean, great tips. I hope everyone goes back and to listen to this. We just invite you to explore your strength. You know, this is just to let you know how things work for other people. And while you're in school, you probably know what works for you, but maybe kind of consider some of these other things. Hey, like Dr. Gray, I had no idea about ninja nerds. And Anki, yeah, so if Dr. Franklin's old school, I'm way old school. So this is very helpful. But you know, I love the tip about study every day. That was really hard. And I will say in undergrad, I wasn't that good, but you have to do it. They always say, you know, in professional schools and dental schools, after your lecture, if you can, just spend 15 minutes just going back over your notes, right? Just while it's really fresh in your head. So I would say do that. And I love Dr. Gopar talking about, you know, going into those student hours and the fairy dust tip, everything. But let me also say that when you are making yourself known to the faculty, that you're sincerely interested in wanting to learn, not just going in there to say, hey, you know, can I get credit for this, or can I get partial credit for this, or will you make a curve? Just like, I really sincerely want to understand, because I want to make sure I'm building on this going forward. And they will remember that. And in addition to maybe curving you up a bit or bump you up a bit, they also may be the first ones to let you know, there's this research going on and they're looking for an intern in this specialty clinic. You know, would you be interested? So you've got to make your face and your name known. So just that is super duper important. And now, as a mother of a student in college, I can just see it working out for her, because she got a great research opportunity and internship. So as your mama mentor, make sure you go into those faculty hours. So I know oh my gosh, we're 1 minute over. I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining, our panelists, organizing. We'll be back here next month. We got a great one planned for you then. And just remember, we did it, so can you. Thank you, everyone. Join us in the Facebook as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also this week, oh, they're already leaving. Let me stop the recording.
Go ahead.
And also, now just going to let them know about the